Welcome to New York Institute of Technology's podcast, The Scope. Produced by the College of Osteopathic Medicine, our episodes focus on the medical school experience and how it helps shape future physicians. Learn about exciting new health and wellness initiatives, cutting-edge medical research and technology, and how to effectively navigate medical school. We are excited to have you join us.
Good evening and welcome to the Scope Podcast. I'm Nadim Quasi, fourth-year medical student at NYITCom's New York campus, and I'm pleased to be your host for today's podcast. Tonight, we're joining two amazing NYITCom mental health professionals who will share valuable advice, helpful insights, and strategies related to attaining a positive work-life balance and effectively managing stresses during the medical school years. Please welcome from our New York campus, Dr. Lisa Hoffman, Associate Professor in Family Medicine and Clinical Psychology, and from our Arkansas campus, Ms. Chioma Oda, LCSW, Assistant Director in Counseling and Wellness. Thank you all for joining us today. So I just want to open up our conversation today with the question that's on medical students' minds is, what are some of the common feelings and experiences, both the highs and the lows, that new medical students may experience?
Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm super excited to be here. Nadim, I think that from the old Westbury campus and my counterpart Chioma from the Jonesboro campus, I'm excited to be doing this with her. We see a lot of students that come on, first through fourth year with various difficulties, challenges. I think one of the biggest things, and I know we're going to be talking about, is imposter syndrome, where they often feel like they have to be perfect in every aspect of their medical career. And if they're not, it often leads to comorbid disorders such as anxiety, depression. They often feel like frauds. I think that's a very common thing that we see. I don't know if, Chioma, you see a lot of that on your campus.
For sure. Yeah. And thank you, Nadine. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I think Lisa's correct. They come with their own stresses from outside of school, and the pressures of medical school sometimes exacerbate that. But I'm glad that you mentioned the highs and the lows because, even though I think that objectively we can say that at least the first semester is one of the hardest times that they'll have here, it is also an exciting time. A lot of times for most of our students, this is, the realization of a dream that they've had since childhood. So there are definitely some highs and, as Lisa said, some lows that can get pretty low.
Yeah, fully agreed. I mean, the highs are pretty high. I genuinely think I have met some of my best friends at medical school, actually. I don't think I would have had this camaraderie without this experience, but with that also comes, those feelings of anxiety, those feelings of not being enough, which I do think come from these students being very high achievers in their own respective high school or colleges. They're these big fish in these small ponds, and then next thing you know, they're thrown into this ocean with a bunch of other big fish, and now everyone feels like a small fish because you're amongst a bunch of big fish. Do you have students often talking about these feelings of inadequacy? And if so, what advice do you give them to kind of cope with this new feeling that they have in a new environment?
I could take that, Nadim. I think that often there's a lot of social comparison that goes on, and don't get me started on social media. We could do a whole other podcast on that. Chioma was saying that, you come on board and you're super excited, and there's so many positive aspects to being a first year medical student. But I think when you start to compare yourself to your peers and you lose focus on what your own personal achievements are and what personal attributes have led you on this path, on this journey into medical school, and your strengths that you possess as an individual. I think once you start straying from your individuality and you're constantly comparing yourself to others, that's when the challenges start to arise.
I completely agree. Thanks, Dr. Hoffman. Chioma, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Hoffman. And, that comparison is really one of the things that helps develop imposter syndrome. It's not a DSM-5 diagnosis, but it is a phenomenon that we see pretty often, really making sure that you come with a strong sense of self and knowing of what your strengths are really helps to combat that developing that sense of feeling like you don't deserve to be here.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important to, remember where you came from, and the fact of the matter is the qualities that you have got you here in the first place, and the school that you're in accepted you for a reason, and that every school that accepts a medical student does it because they feel they're capable and they feel that they have the utilities in order to be a successful physician. Like you both said, it does just really depend on having more faith in yourself and the steps you took to get to this point. I also really like how Dr. Hoffman brought up social media. I think that is really important in the sense that it creates this echo chamber where, students are always talking about their successes and how well they're doing, but no one's really out here sharing their failures or sharing their struggles. You go online, you see all these students doing really well, and you don't really see the struggles that are happening behind the screens of these posts. I think it's really important to keep that in mind as well. When you're scrolling on Instagram, you see everyone's having all these publications. They're struggling just like the rest of us, just no one's really talking about it. With imposter syndrome, with the anxieties of medical school, I think it's important that students have the proper tools to cope and, combat these stressors. Do you have any advice that you give to students typically on, how to deal with these and how to have these healthy coping mechanisms?
I think often talking with trusted friends or our mentor, specifically somebody outside of the field, is kind of grounding. I think for medical students, so they can say, oh yeah, I'm actually doing pretty well. I'm not doing as horribly as I think I am when I compare myself against my peers, right? So again, I think that's important. I think knowing and realizing that it's okay to make mistakes and that there's a learning curve. I'm sure, Nadim, when you first came into medical school, you saw that there was a huge curve. It's acknowledging that it's okay to make mistakes and that, I'm here to learn. I'm not here to be perfect. I think that goes a long way.
Absolutely, yeah. Average physicians are still physicians, which in itself is very extraordinary. I feel like people tend to forget that. Chioma, what about you?
Yeah, for sure. We talk about tools to help combat it. Obviously, I'm biased. I think therapy is a great tool. We on our campus have a little tool called the Student Doctor Wellness Journal, with a few exercises to help students to work through some things on their own. We recognize that not everyone is going to come see us. We like to have something to help students work through some of the feelings. And I think just like Dr. Hoffman was saying, being able to talk about it with someone can make a world of difference.
Yeah, completely agreed. That's a really cool resource. Dr. Hoffman, do you know anything about the resources that we have on our own New York campus?
Absolutely. I was gonna piggyback on what Chioma was saying. Obviously, yeah, absolutely. Therapy can be extremely beneficial, and we have the Center for Behavioral Health that Dr. Jarkon is the director of, and my colleague Dr. Raj. We have two psychologists, and we're here to help the students, and we've been helping them for, a long time now. They're welcome to seek us out at any time. We're here to help. We also have on our website a lot of, if they don't want to come, if they don't feel comfortable seeking therapy on campus. Sometimes they don't. Most people do, though, which is fantastic. We love it. We do have external community resources. We have a huge list that students can access on our website. So I highly recommend that they look at that if they don't feel comfortable coming to the Center for Behavioral Health. But we're here to help. And imposter syndrome often comes up in therapy. Like I said, specifically, people don't come in for that. I think they come in, like I said before, they're presenting with anxiety or depression and things like that. It often sneaks in and they start talking about imposter syndrome. It's pretty prevalent.
Yeah, I feel like it is the root of a lot of anxieties I think medical students have. That was great. Thank you, Dr. Hoffman. Chioma, do you want to add on to that or?
Yes, just like Dr. Hoffman said, we really try to make sure our students have all of the resources that they need. In Jonesboro, of course, we're in Arkansas, so we're in a more rural community. So we don't have a huge list of resources and places for the student, but we try to make sure that our students have the best care possible. So we don't have the Center for Behavioral Health here, but myself and our associate director, Miss Mosby, provide unlimited therapy sessions to our students. Our students also have access to Arkansas State Counseling Center. Some of you might know that Jonesboro campus is located in the center of Arkansas State Campus. So we do have access to those services as well. We also have access to services at a local community mental health service as well. Like I said, we're a rural community, but I know Miss Mosby and I both try our best to make sure that our students have the best care possible. And we just want students to have access and to recognize and know that there's help when they need it. Thankfully, even though we've been through, well, a lot of us have been through a stressful few years. I think the positive of these stressful 3 years is that the growth in our culture towards destigmatizing mental health and talking about mental health and receiving mental health services. Even in the couple years I've been here, I've seen a difference in the demographics of my clients. The scales are balancing amongst of genders, for example, and I really think that's great to see.
I also think that we also have a national mental health crisis hotline 24/7 over the past few years, which is 988. And hopefully, all of our students know about that. That is something that you have free access to 24/7. So, we always encourage you to reach out if you have any need.
Yeah, both very good points. I think in general, as Chioma, you were saying, the culture of medical students has been changing, but I think overall the people are approaching mental health with more open arms nowadays, and it's also affecting the residency process as well. I think more people nowadays, especially in the last few years, are talking more about residency burnout, physician burnout. All these resources are just as important for residents and attending physicians as they are for medical students, So I just want to make it a point that any medical students listening to this podcast, these topics are all pertinent no matter how far you get in your career. Mental health, imposter syndrome, the feeling of inferiority. I think we all do feel it from time to time, no matter how confident you are in your practice. It's important to keep all these in mind as you get older. But thank you. Those are great points you've been making. I also want to touch on the matter of relationships, if either of you would like to open up about this. What do you think are some stresses that a medical student may experience that are related to being in a relationship during this intense time of learning, adapting, and studying? And how can a student best cope with these feelings?
I think, Nadeem, that depending on what type of relationship it is, right? I think there's pros and cons. So I think that, I see some students that are married or are in, serious relationships. The supportive nature of that is quite significant in their academic career, in their self-nurturing, self-help kind of work-life balance that they try to achieve in their lives. And then, sometimes it could be tumultuous or challenging at times, depending on the nature of the relationship. So I think it really depends.
Yeah, completely agree. I think medicine is a very straining job in all aspects of your life, including your relationships. But I think the relationships are a huge lifeline for you to give you the support that you need. And not just romantic relationships. I think platonic relationships as well. I think your friendship support outside of school is very important. And like you were saying earlier, Dr. Hoffman, it is nice to have people outside of medicine to talk to that aren't necessarily in it to understand that you are doing something extraordinary. It's okay to feel unwell. It's okay to not be okay. Chioma, do you have anything you'd like to add on?
Yeah, I mean, like Dr. Hoffman said, there are times where, relationships are tumultuous and they can cause strain, but for the most part, these relationships and maintaining and nurturing all types of relationships, friendships, marriages, romantic relationships is so important for well-being. So I think that students should come in recognizing that although relationships may change and, they'll have to adjust, that they are very important to their time here. And that support that they are going to receive from the people who care about them is invaluable.
Agreed. Yeah, you get out what you put in, so it is important to kind of nurture those relationships and make sure that you're maintaining those strong connections so that it could stay strong and benefit you down the road as well. Moving on, I also want to talk about the transition of students moving from the preclinical to the clinical setting. We had medical students studying for 2 years, learning at a USMLE first aid, sitting down for hours upon hours at the desk, cramming all this information into their brain, thinking they know everything once they take step one, and then they're thrown into the hospital and it feels like they're in a whole new ballgame. They're learning a new language entirely. There are all these logistic aspects of the hospital. The learning curve is steep, and it is kind of crazy to have that kind of a setting transition. So how do you think that students can best prepare for the change into the clinical setting after finishing their preclinical years?
I think, Nadim, a lot of positive self-talk and again, acknowledging their achievements and reminding themselves, yourself. I'm sure you have gone through this or maybe still do at times, right? Reminding yourself what your strengths are, personality, your clinical strengths, what you bring to the table. I often see some of the students have this performance anxiety before they go into clinicals, right? And what if I mess up? What if I don't know what to do? But I almost always hear a very similar statement. They'll say something like, wow, everything just sort of came back and I knew what I was doing. And it's so enlightening to see their self-efficacy and their self-confidence just really like come alive.
Yeah, completely agree. And especially those first few rotations I had my third year personally, I made so many mistakes. I botched up so many presentations, and I think I became a much better student physician because of it. I learned a lot from each mistake I made. I just want to echo what you're saying about, having anxiety and making mistakes. I think every student going into the clinical year should absolutely embrace those mistakes and learn as much as they can out of them because this is really the only point in our career, these 2 years, where you can make mistakes and not be held accountable in any way for them,
Absolutely. You're there to
you know,
learn.
for sure. Chioma, would you like to add on?
Just really agreeing with Dr. Hoffman that having a positive relationship with yourself is really gonna make the difference. The process is hard, so being able to face mistakes and difficulties with resilience is gonna make the difference. Being able to come back and try again, recognizing that you brought yourself that far.
Yep, completely agree. And like we were saying earlier, got accepted to the school for a reason. You pass your boards for a reason. You're essentially proving yourself that you're ready for this. You're built for this. Always keeping that in mind, no matter how many mistakes you made. Completely agree with all that. Similarly, I guess the transition from becoming a medical student to becoming a resident, or even from going from a resident to becoming attending, the transitions just get harder and steeper, and the accountability just continues to increase. I guess. How do you think students could mentally prepare for those transitions if you have any advice for future students or current students?
I think that, what we were saying, just having and building a positive relationship with yourself is gonna be important for all of these different stages, and I think that, that starts from, of course, before you walk into the door and being self-aware, learning about yourself, what makes you tick, and what things that you need daily to take care of yourself.
I agree with that. I think, Nadim, I was going to turn it around to you and ask you. I could tell you a list of coping strategies, but I think it's very individualized. And I'm wondering if you found one particular coping strategy helpful for you during these transitions.
It's a great question.
I'm putting you on the spot, but I
Oh,
think it's really important.
I agree. I agree. I mean, honestly, we were talking a lot about, maintaining our friendships, maintaining our relationships, and I think I make it a very big point to kind of schedule in my time with my friends as if I was scheduling in time to study for an exam or time to go to a meeting for school. I have a Google Calendar and I put all my academic and personal stuff in there, and it'll be like 6 a.m. to 6:30, commute to hospital, but at the same time 6 a.m. to 6:30, catch up with my best friend from high school during that car ride. Spacing my day out with those interactions helps keep me grounded and realize that my life is so much more than just medicine, and it's really easy to forget that when all you do is medicine. You go, especially during my third year, you go to the hospital, you're there all day, you go home, you're tired, you're doing UWorld questions, you're studying, you're taking exams soon. There is a life outside of the hospital. So I think scheduling that time with my friends, scheduling that time with talking to my parents, my cousins has been really important. And just not forgetting my hobbies, not forgetting the things I love to do. I love playing basketball. I try to make an effort to do that at least once a week. Scheduling going to the gym a few times a week. I think those have been monumental. And I think I'm going to try my best to make those all a habit to continue through residency as well.
So, Nadim, I love what you just said. I love how you prioritize and sort of pencil in socialization and the need to connect to other people. I often give my patients homework to do that. I love that. I gave a seminar to transition to residency a few months back, and we talked about work-life balance. And one of the suggestions is setting your daily intentions. What do you want to achieve for that day? It's not just all about work. You need to know when to take breaks. You need to know what type of breaks to take. Do I need to exercise? Do I need to connect to other people? Do I need to meditate and just do some self-nurturing? Take a walk in nature, those kinds of things. You hear about that all the time, right? Constantly, because you often hear a lot about physician burnout. And this stuff is so significant, knowing about self-care and when to do it. And I can't stress enough the consistency. You can't just do it for like 3 days. It's something that has to become habitual in your lifestyle so that you don't burn out and so that you are healthy mentally and physically. Feeling connected, exercising, and constantly, I want to highlight reassessing at certain points in your life. How is my work life balance? Is it completely unbalanced? How am I doing? Where can I tweak things? Where can I make things better?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think some of the best advice I got from my fourth year that I'd like to pass on to everyone else listening, especially after your application season, you send out your ERAS around September, you're doing all your interviews. You have a lot of free time during your fourth year, and I've been told the best thing I can do is to build healthy habits right now and really stick to them so that they carry over into residency and even as an attending. A lot of what you were saying, I think it's important that fourth year medical students instill those very, very strongly, have them become a habit so that it almost feels like they have to do it in between their busy schedules as a resident. Chioma, do you have anything you'd like to add regarding healthy coping mechanisms?
A big part of maintaining that balance is learning how to set and maintain boundaries around, all of these practices. And as you're reflecting and readjusting and learning what works well for you, you're making sure that you are very strict around the boundaries that you set. So if you have that time from 6 to 6:30 with your friend, then you call them, even if you don't necessarily feel like it that day, but recognizing that it's part of what keeps you well, what keeps you healthy and happy and moving forward. So those boundaries are so important.
Completely agree. Yeah, you want to try to keep work and home as separate as you can, your friendships as separate as you can, and I think they start to become safe places for yourself once you end up doing it like that. Great point. Thank you. But yeah, that about wraps up this conversation. I had a great time. Does anyone have any finishing thoughts they'd like to pass on to students, residents, attendings, or other listeners that are here today?
I would just like to end on, we're here to help. Whether you're on the Jonesboro or the Old Westbury campus, we have resources, we have dedicated professionals to help you, and or we have resources. Don't be afraid to use them.
Yeah, just to echo that, we're here to help and we're happy to help. Everyone on my team and everyone that I've met in the university is really invested in the success of the students. So don't be afraid to reach out. We're here to support you.
Absolutely. And even if you're not an NYIT Com student, I'm sure your own respective school has their own resources that are there for students, as well as that national hotline that Dr. Hoffman mentioned earlier. The resources are out there, and don't ever be afraid to reach out for help. But that's all I got. This was a great conversation. Thank you, Chioma. Thank you, Dr. Hoffman, for being here today and sharing your insights, your advice, and your expertise with our listeners. Have a great day, everybody.